Colors don't unite. Cultures do. So did you hear the latest? Did you read the latest article about Michael Jordan and Nike? He's not going to release another shoe until guess when? You're not going to believe it. Until blacks unite. It says it right here. I won't release another shoe until black people unite, says Michael Jordan. He further states, you'll stand in line for my shoes, but won't stand up for yourself. I guess as I'm reading the article, a couple of things that really seem to be motivating him is he states, I have been deeply troubled by the deaths of African Americans at the hands of law enforcement and angered by the cowardly and hateful targeting and killing of police officers. Wow. He says he's also sad to say, but his shoes are part of the problem. I guess somehow he's connecting that with the violence in the community associated with taking other shoes in our community as status symbols. Okay, so hopefully you know that I'm being sarcastic here. This article is fake. However, because it came across my timeline, it caught my attention, and it occurred to me that someone was making a fake article off of an issue that's real in our community. So in that light, I'd still like to explore the possible motivation of this article, because I think that we can gain some useful and insightful perspective from it. I'd like to go back and reset our mental framework with regard to color. Color is a racial terminology. It's a racial concept. It's part of the race construct. So on my previous videos, I've reminded others of the historical creation of the race construct, so I'll do it again. The race construct was created for societal divisions, not intended for purposes of unity. In the 1860s, although slavery ended, race as a social status and the basis of human identity remained. Now here's the important part to remember, because it's more than just about the color of skin. It's about the meaning of that color, the beliefs of that color. So here it is. Race ideology proclaimed the existence of separate, distinct, and exclusive groups that were made unequal by God or nature. African Americans, considered the most inferior, were at the bottom of the hierarchy. European whites, some of them, were at the top. So remember, this is really not just about skin color alone. This is about deeply held beliefs in skin color. One of the human behavioral dynamics that came as an offshoot of the race construct is a term and behavior called colorism. And let me read you the definition. A form of racial discrimination based on the shade of an individual's skin tone, typically favoring lighter skin. Prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. So that's pretty interesting how we have internalized a concept that was created outside of our ethnic or cultural group and made it our own integration into how we identify. So speaking of identity, we have just as many names as we have shades of tones. We have all the variations of the N-word that you can think of. We've been called colored, Afro-American, African American? Are there any that I've left out? So here's a question I'd like you to consider that's going to require your intellectual honesty. If a group of people can't agree on a single name that best represents their identity, can they truly unite? A study from Professor Erica Hall of Emory University's Gozeta Business School suggests that white people have a far more negative view of the term black than they do of the term African American. For instance, study participants routinely concluded that a person had a higher level of education and job status if that person was referred to as African American rather than black. So isn't it possible that if whites have this perception of that difference in terminology between black and African American, that many in the community considered black, who identify as black, have also internalized that perception as well? Let's take a well-known actor, Taye Diggs. He is known for an interview in an article called The Griot, where he was speaking about the identity of his son. Let me read it to you. The 46-year-old thespian came under fire in November 2015 after telling The Griot that he prefers his son to be referred to as biracial or mixed, but not black, due to the confusion that could be brought about with the label. When you call biracial kids black, you risk disrespecting that one half of who you are, and that was his fear, he explained. I don't want my son to be in a situation where he calls himself black and everyone thinks he has a black mom and a black dad. And when they see a white mother, they wonder, oh, what's going on? Now, I think there's really more to it than what he's letting on. I think it's a little more deep with regard to some of his other discomforts or dissatisfactions with the title black. But regardless of the motivation, that is an example of the lack of collectivity in our thinking and unity around just one word and what it's supposed to mean. I started this conversation out on the concept of unity and color, saying that colors don't unite, cultures do. In order to move from color to culture, there's going to have to be a process. It's more than just saying what you have to do, because identity is, in and of itself, is very internal, very emotionally loaded, and has a plethora of subconscious beliefs and practices that go with that. So if we were to change from color to culture, what would we choose to unite on? What would we base our internal values on as a collective culture? Because that's what culture is. It is a shared agreement on the values, concepts, traditions that make one group of people totally unique from another group of people, such as the Hispanic culture, the German culture, the Latin culture. Totally different. There are factors in each color that make them totally different. Excuse me, you see what I just did? There are factors in each culture that make them totally different. Whereas when you have an identity of color, it's just really one factor. You know, obviously race built this country. And even though it's been an ugly, harsh process, I think it's fair to say we have a pretty great country. But I believe that now, at this point in our development, in our evolution, race has become a cancer and is destroying and eating our country from the inside out. Here are some, whenever I'm in conversations, here's some common objections that I often hear about race. Stop playing the race card. You're playing the race card. So my counter to that would be, if you identify as black or as white, aren't you yourself playing the race card? Another objection that I hear a lot: everything is always about race, as if in this country nothing is about race. I don't think you can name anything going on in this country that doesn't have some form of race or aspect of race involved with it. However, to this objection, if you identify by color, black or white, then isn't everything about race? If that's your identity, everything you do is based on your identity. Everything you believe is based on your identity. And here's one that I really love hearing when people say it: get over it. So if you identify by color, which color is telling which color to get over what? And how has that been working? How does that technique work? How does that question or that statement or that demand work? How is it received? Is it received in a unifying fashion? Typically not. So isn't it time to change this social paradigm? And that's why I do this work. I've written a couple of pieces that are the how to the what we have to do with regard to changing our mindset from one of the race construct to one of a more cultural one. My first work is Beliefs Limiting Authentic Cultural Knowledge, which addresses the belief systems associated with color, black or white. My second work is titled Racism, the Disease, and How to Cure It, which addresses the race construct from a clinical paradigm, which describes the disorder and recommends a proposed intervention. So I hope that you've enjoyed this content. If you have, please subscribe and tap the notification bell. I'm curious to know what your feedback is with the premise that I've given you today on this topic, that colors don't unite, only cultures do. Please leave your thoughts and suggestions and feedback in the comment section below. And get on my website. My books are available on Amazon. I'm also available to do workshops in your local area to collaborate with your organizations and address the mindset of race. So I'm George Middleton, and until next time.